The air trembled with the thunder of engines and the static hiss of radio codes, each pulse marking the heartbeat of a century-long war condensed into a single breath. Beneath the haze, a soldier stared into the distance, not at the enemy, but at the reflection of a future where courage is measured in data and precision. In these new fields of battle, steel no longer rules alone. Circuits, sensors, and unseen hands command the rhythm of war. The line between flesh and metal has blurred. It is no longer the tank, the missile, or the gun that decides fate, but the mind behind modern military equipment, where intelligence itself becomes the ultimate weapon. This is not merely a story of nations clashing. It is the dawn of a different kind of soldier. One who fights not just for survival, but to redefine what humanity means in the age of machines. Subscribe, not just for a story, but for a vision. The rise of modern warriors. The rise of modern warriors. Dawn arrived, not with peace, but with tremors that crawled through the mud. Along the broken lines of Donetsk, a dull rhythm echoed, the slow, patient heartbeat of war. Engines growled in the distance, then came the thunder. A convoy of Russian armor moved through the mist, steel shadows gliding across fields littered with yesterday's wreckage. The sky itself seemed to hold its breath. In the trenches, Ukrainian soldiers pressed their backs to the frozen earth. Their uniforms were soaked, their fingers numb, yet their eyes, sharp, unwavering, watched the horizon. Above the haze, reconnaissance drones circled like silent hawks. Their lenses glimmered, scanning every ripple in the terrain. On the command frequency, a calm voice whispered, "Range confirmed. Wait for the mark." The first missile streaked upward with a cry that split the silence. It was not the roar of vengeance, but the precision of mathematics made lethal. The Javelin curved gracefully before diving a silver arrow, guided by invisible minds, and struck the leading tank square on the turret. A pillar of fire rose, tearing the dawn apart. The blast threw earth and metal into the air, raining fragments upon the trench line. The soldiers did not cheer, they reloaded. A second launch followed. Another target collapsed. The convoy disintegrated under invisible hands. Each movement on the field was calculated, each decision made within seconds. "Deploy the swarm," came the next order. From the tree line, a dozen FPV drones lifted, their rotors humming like angry bees. They darted low through the smoke, dancing between burning wrecks. On the command screen, small green icons blinked, targets locked. Then, one by one, the icons vanished as the drones struck home. Ammunition trucks blossomed into fireballs, troop carriers flipped like toys. Within minutes, the assault had turned. What began as an armored advance became a rout of chaos and smoke. From his position, a Ukrainian commander lowered his binoculars. "Not the steel," he murmured, "the mind." The battlefield below was silent except for the crackle of flames and the mechanical buzz of returning drones. They hovered briefly above the trench, almost alive, before descending to recharge. These were not the heroes of old hour, no horses, no banners, only silhouettes against the glare of burning machines. Yet, in their calm, in their quiet efficiency, one truth burned brighter than the fire itself: war had changed forever. And somewhere beyond the smoldering ridge, new engines were already awakening for the next wave. Above the blackened plains, the war changed its face. The smoke below became a moving map, a breathing labyrinth viewed through cold glass and data streams. In a darkened shelter carved beneath the soil, the drone command unit came alive. Monitors flickered to life, casting pale light across weary faces. Thermal range engaged. "Targets at Sector 4, reported a young operator, his fingers trembling over the console. The commander nodded, eyes steady, voice low. "Adjust elevation." No sound. "Let the wind mask us." On screen, the enemy looked unreal, heat signatures glowing red like ghosts. With a tap, coordinates were locked. Outside, the small quadrotors stirred, lifting through the mist like silent spirits. Each one carried a fragment of human intent, yet none felt fear. The first drone dived, its camera feeding the image of a Russian APC glinting beneath shattered trees. The impact came a breath later, hour, white light, black smoke, a shockwave that rippled across the valley. Another followed, slicing through the haze, finding the soft belly of a fuel truck. The explosion tore the air apart, scattering fire and debris into the winter sky. Inside the shelter, there was no cheering, no triumph, only calculation. The operator's voice was barely above a whisper. Target down. Reacquiring. His pulse raced, but his face remained still. Machines were his muscles now. Screens, his eyes. Across the command net, reports streamed in A. Drones striking artillery nests, neutralizing convoys, severing communications. The battlefield no longer belonged to the loudest gun, but to the quietest signal. People say we control them, the commander murmured, his gaze fixed on the shifting pixels of fire, but perhaps they are the ones teaching us how to fight. His words hung in the static, half thought, half confession. On the horizon, new machines appeared, Russian suicide drones, swarming toward the Ukrainian position. The operators reprogrammed their swarm in seconds, setting counter patterns, decoys, false trails. In the blue of the monitors, the two digital storms collided. Sparks of code met sparks of steel, and there, in that clash of invisible forces, war found its second skin. No trenches, no uniforms, only algorithms locked in combat. The commander exhaled. This is what they call evolution. He leaned back, eyes reflecting the glow of the screens. For a moment, the world was reduced to light and silence, a new kind of battleground, where victory was measured not in meters, but in milliseconds. And in the heart of it all, these modern military equipment were no longer mere tools. They were extensions of human instinct, sharpened by code, driven by the pulse of survival itself. The sea was a mirror of iron and night. Beneath its shifting skin, unseen currents carried whispers of war. The moon cast a thin, cold light over the Black Sea, beautiful, deceptive, and full of ghosts. On the deck of a Ukrainian patrol vessel, the crew stood silent. Their breaths formed brief clouds in the freezing air. Far ahead, radar pulses shimmered faintly, reflections of an approaching fleet. No trumpets, no flares, just the low hum of electric motors beneath the surface. All systems green, reported the technician. Autonomous units ready? The commander nodded. He had seen too many battles fought with steel and fury. This one would be fought with silence. Tar! Release them. From the shadows of the waves, 6 small boats detached, ghost-like craft gliding without a ripple. Each carried its own mind, an on-board AI tuned for precision, not destruction. They skimmed across the dark water, invisible beneath radar sweep. The Russian formation loomed ahead as equals, great silhouettes of metal and light. Destroyers, corvettes, and escort ships aligned in perfect symmetry. The kind of power that once defined the sea. But the sea no longer obeyed such empires. Within moments, the first autonomous strike boats reached attack range. Their sensors blinked, scanning for weak points, fuel lines, antenna arrays, exposed command decks. Then, like hunting sharks, they released their payloads. White fire erupted along the hull of the lead ship. Shockwaves rolled across the bay. Crew members shouted, alarms screamed, lights flickered red. From above, unseen drones dived, their cameras recording the chaos in perfect clarity. Hit confirmed, came the quiet voice over the encrypted link. The commander did not answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the horizon, where other flashes were blooming, AS-125, a chain of controlled destruction. The enemy fleet returned fire, their anti-air systems stabbing into the darkness, shredding the sky with tracer lines. But the targets were too small, too fast, too many. The machines moved with the grace of predators, thinking faster than men could react. In less than 10 minutes, 3 ships were burning. The rest scattered, retreating toward deeper water. On the Ukrainian command deck, no one cheered. They simply watched, listening to the wind carry the sound of distant explosions, the sea rewriting its balance of power. "Status of our fleet?" the commander asked. "No losses. No losses. Minor interference on Channel 2. He exhaled slowly. The glow of fire reflected in his eyes. "Then it's begun," he murmured. "The age where silence strikes louder than thunder." Out there, the wreckage drifted, dark shapes glowing orange in the cold tide. Seagulls circled above, confused by the heat. Beneath them, the unmanned boats returned, sliding through the waves like faithful shadows. A technician whispered, almost reverently, "They think. They adapt." The commander's voice was steady. "They obey. For now." He looked once more toward the horizon, a vast expanse of black water dotted with the dying flames of ships. In that reflection of chaos and calm, one truth gleamed. These modern military equipment were no longer creations of war. They were its conscience and its prophecy. The sea fell silent again, as if holding its breath for what would come next. Dawn touched the ruins like a reluctant witness. The smoke that had once marked chaos now curled upward, thin and pale, dissolving into the calm of the new day. Across land and sea, the echoes of battle faded into data, coordinates, fragments, signatures of machines that had fought in silence. The war was not over. Naste, the war was not over, and the second, it had only changed its language. In a command post somewhere between the forests and the shore, the Ukrainian commander stood before a cracked screen. Around him lay burnt-out consoles, silent drones, and the tired faces of men who had not slept in days. Yet, amid exhaustion, there was a strange stillness, the stillness of understanding. "We used to count victories in bodies and bullets," he said quietly. "Now we count them in seconds and signals." His reflection shimmered on the screen beside the outline of a drone, blurred yet unbroken. Steel once ruled the battlefield. Now thought does. Outside, the wreckage of machines floated upon the water like forgotten monuments. They were once called tools, but now they carried meaning as symbols of a new order where calculation replaced chaos. Each piece of military equipment told a story of human will, sharpened by code, guided by unseen minds. From the shattered tanks to the silent boats, from the trenches to the deep sea, the same truth remained. Progress has no pause. Nations that refuse to evolve are already defeated. Those who embrace intelligence over iron redefine survival itself. "We built weapons," the commander whispered, "and in return, they built us." His voice trembled between pride and fear. He looked at the rising sun, a reminder that even light is a kind of weapon when it pierces the dark. Military equipment is no longer about destruction. It is about endurance, the art of thinking faster, adapting sooner, surviving longer. It mirrors the heart of its maker. Somewhere beyond the smoke, an operator adjusted the controls of a returning drone. Its propellers shimmered briefly in the dawn before shutting down, perfectly still. And in that silence, between man and machine, between code and conscience, a new creed of warfare was written. The greatest weapon is not forged from metal, but from mind. The screen faded to black. The future had already begun. AK carried on the wings of military equipment and on the breath of those who dared to dream beyond the noise of war. The morning did not break with sunlight, but with smoke. Across a scarred horizon, machines roared awake, not as servants of men, but as their equals. When machines fight machines, where does the human spirit stand?